Hi, my name is Ryan and welcome to the Healthy Home Movement. If you're designing a home or thinking about designing a home, you're in the right place. Today I'm doing a series of videos called the Passive House. What is Passive House? Passive House is not a passive house. This is slightly different. Passive House is actually a set of standards with the aim of significantly reducing the energy consumption and improving the indoor air quality and environment that the family is going to live in. To put it into perspective, your energy consumption for your house will be equal to your fresh air load. What this actually effectively means is that your building is self-heating. Also, with regards to ventilation, it insists on the use of an MVHR unit, which is mechanical ventilation with a heat recovery. The flow rates are a lot higher than what our current building regulations require. This is based on many years of study, and many homes are now being built to this standard. It is very popular on the continent, and it's only really started to take off in the UK. To build a passive house or not to build a passive house, that certainly is a good question. You need to make sure that you're building passive house for the right reasons. If you'd like to live in an ultra low energy home that has very good indoor air quality, very good heating comfort levels, same again with summertime comfort levels, then passive house might be something for you. What Passive House is not a holistic design approach. It only really considers energy consumption in terms of heating and specifies low energy use on your appliances and lights, which to be honest is pretty much now standard. It does not require any form of renewables or talk about any form of carbon offsetting or other things like water reduction. It predominantly focuses on one sort of area. So a lot of people misunderstand that you're buying or building an eco home. An eco home would actually combine everything and look at the whole picture in terms of its inbuilt and it builds energy into the fabric, how it can be dismantled as well, and renewables like that. But the biggest advantage is that it is actually a recognised standard now, and it's becoming more and more popular in the UK. Why you wouldn't do a passive house is that it is considered to be quite a stringent set of standards, and to get to 80% of passive house may be just enough for the client's aspirations and budget, rather than going the full hog, which might be exceeding a client's budget. Are passive houses healthy homes? A passive house is a great start to a healthy home. In practice, it deals with low energy usage, deals with indoor air quality, and it deals with another number of ways of actually ensuring things are installed correctly. What it does not do, it does not ensure that you have a good cost model, it doesn't ensure that you have a good contract, and then also it doesn't ensure that other things like drainage and pipes installation is covered at all. So even though it is very good for one side of the building, it's not a full overall holistic approach to installing a quality product. But having said that, if you do go down passive house, you do need to use good, competent installers, and more often than not, they will be able to install a great installation for you, thus meaning it can be classed as a healthy home. A lot of people ask, what is the cost of a passive house? Many studies have been carried out. One study suggests that it costs between 15 to 20% when compared to a standard code for sustainable home. So why does it cost more? In a good research article by Kate, she outlines two key reasons why this may be. Firstly, we are using better quality products. She does highlight that this difference is getting lower and lower for each year, bearing in mind that products are now getting better and better. The standard products are getting better and better through the EU initiatives and just general build quality. Secondly, that is the passive house is relatively new in the UK and there's a learning curve associated with it. So any new builder that hasn't used passive house before will obviously include a certain fee in their proposal for risk. This is why it's important to use a design team that has done passive house before. In particular, the architect will need to hold your hand through the process, and they're available from the start to the finish of the project, and that's very key for them to be on board as early as possible. And same with the contractor, to get them on board, preferably you go with a builder that has passive house experience. I'm just going to quickly go through the standards and what they actually mean. I appreciate you might have an overview of one or two, but I'm just going to quickly run through all of them. So the specific heat demand, that is how much your space heating needs to produce throughout the annual period, which is significantly lower than a typical building. Same with the cooling. Again, this is limiting mechanical cooling. A lot of our UK homes do not have mechanical cooling, so this requirement is a little bit not anything to worry about. Secondly, the space heating demand is at 10 watts per meter squared. To put this in perspective, a typical home we use will require 50 to 60 watts per meter squared. So we have brought this limit all the way down to 10, which is great. The key one is 120, which is your overall specific primary energy demand for your building, and that's per year. So what a lot of people talk about is the air permeability in a passive house. To put it in perspective, if you added all the holes up, would add up to roughly about the size of a 50p piece. In comparison, a new build home would add up to an A4 piece of paper, effectively the same size as an iPad. So the difference is quite substantial. Same with walls, glazing, installed glazing, and doors. The U values on them are significantly lower. To put in perspective, a glazing unit is 0.8 watts per meter squared, which is the U value. Just if you're not aware of what U value is, a U value is effectively how much energy a material would emit, and depending on the difference in temperature. So so 0.8 would emit 0.8 watts per meter squared of the wall area. So and then per Kelvin, which is a standard unit of temperature. But you're probably more used to Celsius. It's the same thing in this sort of instance because you're using a difference. So the lower your glazing unit U value is, the better its efficiency. So for example, 0.8 is what we require for glazing. A typical very high performance glazing in the UK is considered around about 1.1. So even you can see that 0.8 is very hard to get. A normal glazing unit would be 1.4 to 1.7 is what would be normally expected. We've talked about infiltration. Thermal bridging, that is in each corner of a building is called a thermal bridge because that is where your weak points are. The more corners you have, the more energy your building will release. It's much more efficient to have one flat surface rather than multiple cornered surfaces. That would need to be calculated with your architect. The MVHR units, its efficiency is 0.75. So what this means is that the heat recovery is at 0.75. So you're extracting air from a space and expelling it outside. Before expelling it outside, you recuperate some of that energy, which is 75% of it, by putting the fresh air coming in over the heat exchanger into the space. What's one clear thing to remember is that you're not physically mixing the air, you're just transferring energy from one to the other using a heat exchanger, an air heat exchanger. Ventilation electric limit is at 0.45. That is effectively the specific fan power. We use more of a standard unit of specific fan power in this country, which they both mean the same thing. It's the amount of energy it requires to move your air around your building. So the higher your specific fan power or higher your electric limit, the more energy you're using. The reason why this is important is that some MVHR units can be undersized for the space, which will then require a lot more energy than if the unit was appropriately sized. All appliances have to be A rated. Lighting should all be high efficiency fittings. And on-site renewables, what we discussed before and previous in the series, is that there is no real requirement for renewables, and this is because the standards are looking at energy consumption, energy reduction, not carbon footprint. By reducing your energy reduction, it's reducing your carbon footprint, but it doesn't look at completely eradicating it or providing any additional energy generation on site. Procurement. How does changing to Passivhaus change your procurement method? Firstly, it just means that you need to have a much more robust design team and builder. So you bring on your team early on as possible to start designing it, making sure you're putting the building in the right orientation, designing so the right size, the shape will make a huge difference depending on how well or how easy it is to build your passive house. And then once you build, you need to make sure you get a good builder on board who either has an interest in passive house or has built passive house in the past, because otherwise you'd be fighting an uphill struggle throughout the process. It does require you to build and use better equipment than a standard home. I found a really good blog that specialises in passive house only, so I've included a link below to it, and in that I've also included a link to their resources page. Rather than me replicating it, that resources page is a very good starting point for you to start researching what the roles and responsibilities and how the passive house would actually be built. If you've got a question, please leave a comment below or send me an email. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you found it useful. There'll be more in the series, so please click subscribe. If you have a question, please leave a comment below, or feel free to give me a call or an email. If you'd like to join the Healthy Home movement or would like to know more about the Healthy Home movement, please visit us on our website, which is a free community that shares stories and ideas. Again, please remember, if you're going to build a home, build a healthy home. Thank you.